A woman with a baby was left behind in a storm. The cowboy found them and took them home. The wind howled like an angry beast across the barren plains of Aurora 7, a remote colony planet with jagged rocks and endless dust storms. The sky was a dark, roiling gray, lit by flashes of electric storms that twisted across the horizon. Among the chaos, a lone shuttle struggled to stay on course, buffeted by the violent gusts and magnetic interference that made navigation nearly impossible. Inside the shuttle, Elara gripped the controls, her knuckles white. Sweat trickled down her temple, despite the chill in the cabin. She had only a few minutes to get her shuttle to the outpost before the storm fully engulfed the landing zone. Her infant son, Kai, slept in a makeshift cradle strapped to the floor. His soft breathing was the only comforting sound amid the roar of the storm. Come on," Elara muttered under her breath. The shuttle's sensors were flickering, and the automated navigation system had already failed twice. The usual reassurance of technology was gone. Now it was just her instincts and her courage against the storm. A sudden lurch threw her against the dashboard. Alarms screamed as the shuttle skidded over the rocky ground, and a panel sparked violently. "Not now," she whispered, struggling to regain control. The cradle jolted, and she instinctively reached out to steady Kai, her heart racing. The storm wasn't just wind. It was something alive, something that seemed to push, twist, and batter everything in its path. Then the shuttle's engine died with a harsh cough. Silence fell for a fraction of a second before the storm slammed into the craft like a hammer. Sparks flew and the cabin lights flickered. Elara's stomach dropped. The shuttle wouldn't survive another gust. With no choice left, she guided it toward a small hollow she'd spotted earlier, a depression in the rocky terrain that might provide some shelter. The landing was rough. Metal screeched and twisted, and the shuttle finally toppled onto its side, skidding to a stop with a shudder. Elara gasped, checking on Kai. He was unharmed, though wide-eyed and trembling. Relief washed over her in a wave, only to be replaced by the realization that they were now stranded. Outside, the storm roared with renewed fury. Dust and debris lashed against the wreckage, and the sky seemed to pulse with electricity. Elara pulled a small emergency suit from a compartment, dressed Kai, and bundled him close. The suit was thin but insulated, enough to protect them from the worst of the cold and wind. She peered at the rocky horizon. The nearest outpost was miles away, across jagged plains that were dangerous even in calm weather. But she had no choice. If they stayed, the storm would tear them apart. She checked the emergency beacon, a small device meant to signal nearby settlements. Its battery was weak, but it was all she had. "Hang on, Kai," she whispered. "Mommy will get us through this." The storm was relentless. Every step forward was a battle against the wind, which tore at her clothes and threatened to knock her off her feet. Rocks slid under her boots and sharp debris cut through the suit's protective layers. Each gust seemed stronger than the last, as if the planet itself were testing her resolve. Hours passed. The sun, hidden behind thick storm clouds, offered no warmth. Elara's muscles ached, her lungs burned, and Kai's cries were muffled by the wind. Yet she pressed on, driven by a determination that no storm could extinguish. She knew humans were survivors. It was a lesson written in her bones. No matter how hostile the world, they could endure. By late afternoon, she spotted a faint flicker in the distance, a signal of hope. She scrambled toward it, stumbling over rocks and barely noticing the cuts on her hands. It was a small tower, half buried in dust, with its beacon still faintly blinking. She collapsed near the base, holding Kai tightly. "Please, someone see us," she whispered, activating her own beacon. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then, in the distance, a figure appeared. It moved with purpose, navigating the storm with a confidence she could not yet understand. As it drew closer, she saw that it was a man, a lone cowboy-like figure, riding a strange hovering vehicle that cut through the wind like a knife. He wore a wide-brimmed hat, a long coat, and sturdy boots, all coated with dust and storm residue. Despite the chaos around him, he moved steadily, almost effortlessly. His eyes scanned the terrain, sharp and calculating. When he saw Alara and Kai, he slowed, bringing his vehicle to a stop a few meters away. "Hold still," he shouted over the wind. "I've got you." Alara felt a surge of relief. She waved her beacon frantically. The man advanced carefully, extending a hand. "I'm Riker," he called. "Come with me." She hesitated for only a moment before lifting Kai and running toward him. The wind hit her like a wall, but Riker shielded them with a collapsible energy barrier from his vehicle. For the first time in hours, she felt safe. Riker's vehicle was more than just a mode of transport. It was a lifeline. It had reinforced shields, automated navigation, and survival systems that allowed it to cut through the storm. Alara clung to Kai, wrapping him in her arms as Riker guided the vehicle over jagged rocks, avoiding pitfalls and treacherous ground. "You'll be safe," Riker shouted over the roar. "Just hold on." As they moved, Alara glanced at the man. He was different from anyone she had ever met, calm in the storm, confident yet careful. He didn't rely solely on technology. He understood the land, the storm, and the risks. Humans, she realized, had a strange ability to adapt, to use both instinct and intelligence to survive. Riker embodied that. Hours later, the storm began to wane, the clouds parting just enough to show streaks of pale sunlight. Riker guided the vehicle to a small ridge that overlooked a settlement in the distance. Smoke rose from chimneys, and the faint glimmer of energy shields indicated that the people inside were alive and thriving, despite the harsh environment. Alara's exhaustion caught up with her. She sank onto the vehicle's seat, still holding Kai close. Tears streamed down her face, not from fear anymore, but from relief. She had survived. Kai had survived. And now, thanks to Riker, they had a chance at life beyond the storm. Riker smiled faintly, noticing her expression. "You did well," he said simply. "Storms don't win against people who refuse to give up." Alara nodded, understanding. Humans weren't the strongest species, nor did they have the fastest ships or the most powerful weapons. But they had something else: courage, determination, and an ability to face the impossible and keep moving forward. As the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light across the rocky plains, Alara looked at Kai, sleeping peacefully in her arms. She whispered a promise to him, a vow for the future. "We'll make it, no matter what." Riker started the descent toward the settlement, his vehicle gliding over the uneven terrain. Alara held Kai tighter, feeling warmth and hope for the first time in what felt like forever. Behind them, the storm still raged across the plains, but it no longer seemed threatening. They had survived it, together. And that was only the beginning. The settlement of Redstone Ridge lay in a narrow valley between jagged cliffs. Its buildings were simple, practical, and built to endure the harsh conditions of Aurora 7. Smoke rose from chimneys, and solar panels glittered under the weak sunlight breaking through the clouds. Alara felt a flicker of hope. After hours of struggle in the storm, they were almost safe. Riker's vehicle glided over the rough terrain, its shields still humming with energy to keep debris and dust at bay. Alara held Kai close, whispering gentle words to soothe him. The baby stirred, blinking at the shifting light through the energy barrier, and then drifted back to sleep. "You'll be okay now," Riker said quietly, though his voice was barely heard over the hum of the vehicle. He glanced at Alara, studying her face. "That was a rough storm." "You held up well." Alara managed a weak smile. "I had to," she said, "for him." She tapped the small cradle still attached to her side. "I couldn't lose him, not here, not now." Riker nodded. He understood without needing her to explain. Humans fought for each other, especially for those they loved. It was a trait he respected, and one that often made them stronger than the harsh environments they lived in. As they approached the settlement, Riker slowed the vehicle. The gates of Redstone Ridge were simple but sturdy, guarded by a small crew of colonists. They eyed Riker's approach with caution, hands hovering near their weapons, though none were ready to fire. It wasn't unusual for people to arrive unexpectedly on this planet, and storms often forced travelers off course. Riker raised a hand. "I've got two survivors from the storm," he called. "A woman and her baby. They need shelter." The guards exchanged quick glances before opening the gates. The settlement welcomed them with open arms, though curiosity and caution were mixed in their eyes. It was rare for anyone to arrive during such violent weather, and survival stories spread quickly in a place like this. Inside the settlement, the air smelled warm and faintly of wood smoke. Children played near the center square, unaware of the storm that raged beyond the valley. Farmers and workers moved briskly, tending to gardens, livestock, and machinery. It was a small, self-sufficient community, and Alara realized how much humans could adapt, even thrive, in difficult environments. Riker guided them to a small, vacant dwelling near the edge of the settlement. It was modest but comfortable, with a fire already burning in a corner hearth and supplies laid out on a wooden table. "You can rest here," he said. "I'll make sure you have what you need." Alara set Kai down carefully in a small crib Riker had arranged. The baby stirred again but did not cry. She watched him for a moment, her exhaustion heavy in her bones. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how I could ever repay you." Riker shrugged, a faint smile on his weathered face. "You don't have to. Everyone deserves a chance. You survived, and that's what matters." For the first time in many hours, Alara allowed herself to sit, letting the warmth of the fire seep into her chilled bones. She watched as Riker moved with quiet efficiency, checking the door seals, the energy filters, and even the small hydroponic plants growing by the window. His actions were precise, yet he carried an air of calm that made the home feel safe. "You really know this land," she said softly. How do you survive it all?" Riker chuckled quietly. "You learn to respect it. Storms, rocks, wildlife, they can kill you if you fight them carelessly. But if you move with them, pay attention, and use your mind, you survive. And sometimes you even thrive." Alara nodded. There was truth in his words. Humanity was resourceful, capable of learning quickly, and of turning even danger into opportunity. She thought back to the storm, to the shuttle, to every decision she had made. Humans had something unique, a combination of courage, intelligence, and stubbornness that refused to give in. As the day passed, the storm outside began to fade, leaving behind scattered clouds and soft light. The settlement hummed with life. People came to check on the newcomers, offering food, blankets, and gentle smiles. Alara felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest, a feeling of community, of belonging. She had been alone for so long, and now, surrounded by humans who cared, she felt hope return. Riker stayed nearby, sitting in a corner of the small dwelling, his eyes scanning the horizon even as he kept a casual posture. There was a quiet strength in him, a vigilance born from years of experience on this harsh planet. He didn't need to explain it. Alara could see it in every movement, every careful glance. "Do you always live out here?" she asked, curiosity mixing with admiration. "Most of the time," Riker said. "People come and go, but I prefer to roam the plains. It keeps me sharp and it keeps me ready for situations like yours." Alara glanced at Kai, sleeping peacefully. "You saved us," she said softly. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been there." Riker nodded. "Humans don't give up easily. But sometimes it helps to have someone else watching your back. We survive better together." His words lingered. Alara realized that despite her determination and skill, she had been alone. And humans, no matter how strong, thrived best when they relied on each other. The storm had tested her and she had survived. But the journey ahead would test her in new ways, and she would not be alone this time. Night fell and the settlement quieted. The wind outside had softened and the stars began to peek through the clouds. Ilara sat by the window, holding Kai close and watched the distant horizon. She thought about the storm, about the shuttle, and about Riker, the cowboy who had appeared like a guardian when all hope seemed lost. She realized something profound. Humans were not the fastest, the strongest, or the most advanced species in the universe. But they had something more important: courage, ingenuity, and a will to survive no matter the odds. It was these qualities that allowed them to endure storms, face dangers, and even thrive in worlds that seemed hostile. Riker remained at the edge of the dwelling, his eyes still scanning the night. Ilara didn't need to ask why. He was always prepared, always aware. She felt safe knowing he was near. The bond between them was silent but powerful, two humans connected by a storm, by survival, and by the shared instinct to protect life. In the days that followed, Ilara began to recover her strength. She helped with chores, learned the layout of the settlement, and became familiar with the routines of the people who had taken her in. The community accepted her with kindness, and Kai quickly became a beloved figure among the children. Riker showed her the tools and techniques that kept them alive on Aurora 7. He taught her how to repair equipment, navigate the rocky terrain, and understand the unpredictable weather patterns. Ilara soaked up every lesson, amazed at how humans could adapt so quickly and effectively. One afternoon, while helping Riker check the energy barriers around the settlement, Ilara asked, "Do you ever get scared?" Riker looked at her, considering the question. "Of course," he admitted, "but fear is useful. It keeps you alert, it keeps you careful. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it." Ilara thought about the storm and the shuttle. She had been terrified, but she had acted. And now, under Riker's guidance, she was learning that human strength was not just physical, but mental and emotional as well. As the sun set over the jagged cliffs, casting long shadows across the settlement, Ilara felt a sense of peace she hadn't known for months. The storm was behind them, but the challenges of the frontier world lay ahead. She was ready. With Riker by her side and the community supporting them, she knew they could face whatever came next. Humans survived storms, built communities, and cared for each other. And in that truth, Ilara found hope, a hope that could endure even the harshest winds of Aurora 7. For the first time in a long time, she smiled without fear. They were safe for now. But more importantly, she understood that the true strength of humans was not in technology or weapons, but in their hearts and minds. That strength would carry them through the trials yet to come. And Riker, the lone cowboy who had appeared in their darkest hour, was living proof of it. The morning sun rose slowly over Redstone Ridge, casting a soft golden glow over the jagged cliffs and scattered buildings. The storm had finally passed, leaving the air crisp and clear. Yet the landscape beyond the settlement was still dangerous. Treacherous rocks, shifting dust fields, and unpredictable weather awaited anyone who dared leave the safety of the valley. Ilara stood outside the small dwelling, holding Kai close. The baby cooed softly, unaware of the challenges that lay ahead. She felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She had survived the storm, but the journey across the wild plains would test her endurance, patience, and courage in ways she could not yet imagine. Riker approached, his figure silhouetted against the rising sun. His wide-brimmed hat cast a shadow over his face, but his calm eyes met hers. "Are you ready?" he asked. His voice was steady, a quiet anchor against the morning wind. Ilara nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Let's go." They loaded their supplies onto Riker's hovering vehicle. It was sturdy and well-equipped: reinforced shields, a small storage compartment for food and water, and tools for repairing equipment in case something went wrong. Riker's careful preparation reflected the harshness of Aurora 7. Every journey required thought, planning, and respect for the land. The plains stretched endlessly before them, jagged rocks rising like ancient ruins and dust fields shimmering in the morning light. The vehicle hummed steadily as they moved, slicing through the rough terrain with surprising ease. Yet Alara knew the danger was never far away. Every step outside the settlement was a test of survival. The storm left parts of the land unstable, Riker explained. Rocks shift, sand collapses, and hidden crevices can trap the unwary. We'll need to stay alert. Alara tightened her grip on Kai. She had faced storms before, but this journey required a different kind of vigilance. She watched Riker carefully, noting how he read the terrain, anticipating danger before it appeared. It was a lesson in patience, observation, and trust, qualities humans had perfected over centuries of survival. Hours passed as they crossed the rugged plains. The vehicle glided over jagged rocks, leapt small ravines, and skirted unstable cliffs. Dust whipped around them and the sun beat down relentlessly, yet Riker moved with careful confidence. Every movement was deliberate, every choice calculated. Alara marveled at his skill. "You've traveled these lands often," she said, breaking the silence. "How do you know where it's safe?" Riker glanced at her. "You learn to read the land. Every rock, every ridge, every change in the wind tells you a story. The storm left new hazards, but it also left signs. You just have to notice them." Alara realized that survival wasn't just about strength or technology. It was about observation, patience, and understanding. Humans had learned to adapt not by brute force, but by thinking, noticing patterns, and making careful decisions. As the sun reached its peak, they encountered the first real danger, a wide crevasse, its edges unstable and crumbling. Riker stopped the vehicle, lowering it carefully to the ground. "This is tricky," he said. "One wrong move and we could fall. We'll need to use the support cables." Alara watched as he attached reinforced cables to secure the vehicle. With steady hands, he guided her across the gap, the baby safe in her arms. Her heart pounded as the wind gusted suddenly, threatening to push them off balance. Yet Riker's calm presence reassured her. Together they crossed the chasm, alive and stronger for the experience. "See," Riker said with a faint smile. "Humans survive by staying smart, not by rushing." Alara nodded, grateful for his guidance. Every moment on the plains was a lesson, a demonstration of how humans could endure even the most hostile worlds. She felt her respect for Riker grow, not just as a protector, but as a teacher, showing her how to use her instincts, intelligence, and courage in equal measure. By late afternoon, the plains gave way to a valley filled with strange, glowing plants. Their bioluminescent light shimmered faintly, casting eerie shadows across the rocks. The landscape was beautiful but deceptive. The ground was soft in places, hiding deep sinkholes. Alara felt the tension rise in her chest. Every step forward was uncertain. "We'll need to move carefully here," Riker warned. "These plants indicate moisture below the surface. It looks safe, but pockets of sand can give way without warning." Alara took a deep breath and followed his instructions, stepping lightly, her eyes scanning the ground. Kai shifted in her arms, sensing her caution. She whispered to him, soothing him as much as herself. Survival, she realized, was not just about enduring danger. It was about calm, careful action, even when fear pressed against the chest. Suddenly, a soft rumble shook the ground. Rocks shifted, and a small sinkhole opened just a few feet from them. Alara froze, her heart racing. Riker moved instantly, pulling her back with firm hands. "Stay calm," he said. "The ground can be unpredictable, but if you think and act, you stay safe." Together, they navigated the tricky terrain. Each step required focus, courage, and trust in one another. The glowing plants illuminated their path, a reminder that even in danger, there was beauty to be found. Humans, Alara realized, could endure both pain and wonder, navigating the unknown with hope and determination. As night approached, they reached a natural cave sheltered beneath a rocky cliff. Riker set up a small fire, and Alara carefully laid Kai in a secure pouch, keeping him warm. The baby stirred, comforted by her presence and the soft glow of the fire. "We'll rest here tonight," Riker said. The plains are less dangerous during the dark, but moving in the dark is risky. Dawn will give us better visibility. Alara nodded, exhausted but grateful. She watched Riker as he checked the surroundings, ensuring there were no predators, unstable rocks, or sudden hazards. His attention to detail was exhausting in its thoroughness, yet it reminded her how humans could protect each other through care, vigilance, and intelligence. The night passed quietly. Stars shone brilliantly above, unspoiled by city lights. Alara sat by the fire, holding Kai close, feeling the warmth seep into her bones. She reflected on the journey so far, the storm, the rescue, the plains, and now the cave. Humans were remarkable, she thought, not because they had the fastest ships or the strongest bodies, but because they never gave up. They adapted, observed, and acted. They survived. Morning came with a soft orange glow. The plains were calm, the air cool and crisp. Riker prepared the vehicle, checking every system before they moved. Alara felt a surge of confidence. She had learned so much already, and with Riker guiding them, she knew they could face whatever the journey held. They set off again, moving steadily through the plains. The landscape changed. Jagged rocks gave way to rolling hills, and strange alien plants dotted the terrain. The vehicle hummed quietly as it glided over the uneven ground. As they traveled, Alara began to notice details she had missed before. The way the wind shifted around rocks, the subtle patterns of plant growth indicating water below, and the signs of animal life hidden in the shadows. Humans, she realized, survived not by brute force but by understanding the world, paying attention, and using knowledge wisely. Hours later, they reached a wide river cutting through the plains. The water was swift, fed by melting ice from distant mountains. Riker stopped at the edge, assessing the situation. "We can't cross here directly," he said. "The current is too strong. We'll need to find a narrower point upstream." Alara watched him work, studying his methods. He marked safe paths, tested the ground, and calculated the vehicle's weight distribution. His skill was a reminder that humans could solve problems through patience, logic, and ingenuity. They found a suitable crossing a short distance upstream. Using support cables and careful maneuvering, Riker guided the vehicle across the river. Alara held Kai tightly, heart pounding as the water rushed beneath them. Step by step, they made it safely to the other side. "See," Riker said with a smile. "Humans survive by thinking, not by rushing." Alara laughed softly, feeling a sense of pride. They had faced storms, treacherous plains, glowing plants, unstable ground, and a raging river, and they were still alive. Humans were extraordinary, she realized. Their strength came from courage, intelligence, and the ability to work together. As the sun began to set, they set up camp for the night. Alara watched the fire flicker, holding Kai and reflecting on the journey. She thought about the lessons she had learned: patience, observation, courage, and trust. Humans were capable of amazing feats when they combined these qualities. Riker sat nearby, keeping watch. Alara understood that their journey was far from over, but she felt ready. Together they could face anything. And as Kai slept peacefully in her arms, she whispered a promise to him. They would survive, thrive, and find a home, no matter how harsh the world might be. Humans endured. Humans adapted. Humans survived. And Alara now understood that this was their greatest strength. The plains stretched endlessly before them, dangerous and beautiful. But Alara no longer felt fear. She felt hope. And that hope would carry them through the trials ahead. The land began to change again as Riker and Alara moved farther from the open plains. Tall stone formations rose from the ground like ancient towers, their surfaces smooth in some places and sharply cracked in others. The air felt heavier here, filled with a low hum that Alara could not explain. Even the wind sounded different, softer but constant, as if whispering warnings. Riker slowed the hovering vehicle and studied the horizon. His eyes narrowed slightly, not in fear but in focus. "This area is called the Broken Reach," he said. It's close to home, but it's also one of the most unpredictable places on this planet. Alara held Kai closer. The baby was awake now, quietly watching the shifting light and shadows. "What makes it dangerous?" she asked. Riker gestured toward the stone towers. "The ground here is old. Deep under the surface, energy currents move without pattern. Technology acts strange. Maps become unreliable. You must trust your senses more than your instruments." Alara nodded. She had learned enough by now to understand that survival on Aurora 7 was never simple. Humans could not depend on machines alone. They had to think, adapt, and stay calm. They moved forward carefully. The vehicle's navigation screen flickered, symbols blurring and reappearing. Riker switched it off without hesitation. "No point trusting something that's confused," he said calmly. "We'll do this the human way." Alara watched him closely. Despite the danger, Riker showed no panic. He adjusted speed, listened to the wind, and studied the rock patterns. Every decision came from experience and careful thought. As they traveled deeper into the broken reach, the path narrowed. Tall stone walls closed in around them, forming a natural corridor. Shadows stretched long across the ground and the temperature dropped slightly. Suddenly, the vehicle jolted. Alara gasped. "What was that?" Riker stopped immediately. He stepped off the vehicle and crouched, placing his hand against the ground. He stayed still for several seconds, listening, feeling. "The ground shifted," he said. "Not enough to break, but enough to warn us." Alara felt her heart race. "Can we go around?" Riker shook his head. "Not easily, but we can go through slowly." He secured extra support cables and adjusted the vehicle's balance. Then he helped Alara down so they could walk part of the way. "Stay close," he said. "Step where I step." Alara nodded and followed carefully, every movement deliberate. Kai stayed quiet, as if sensing the seriousness of the moment. The ground felt strange beneath her boots, not soft, not hard, but uncertain. Each step required trust and control. She focused on her breathing, remembering everything Riker had taught her. Humans survive not by rushing, but by thinking. Halfway through the corridor, the wind suddenly changed direction. A low vibration passed through the stone walls. Riker stopped instantly. "Don't move." Alara froze. A deep crack appeared in the ground a few feet away, spreading slowly like a line drawn by an invisible hand. Small rocks fell into the darkness below. Alara swallowed hard. Fear pressed against her chest, but she did not panic. She held Kai securely and waited. After several long seconds, the ground settled. Riker exhaled slowly. "All right," he said. "We move again, one step at a time." They made it through the corridor without further trouble. When they reached open ground again, Alara finally allowed herself to breathe freely. "I was scared," she admitted quietly. Riker nodded. "That's normal. Fear keeps you alive if you listen to it." As the day went on, dark clouds gathered in the distance. Not a storm like before, but something different. The sky dimmed and the wind grew warmer. Alara noticed Riker watching the clouds closely. "What is it?" "A heat surge," he said. "Short but intense. We'll need shelter." They searched the area until Riker spotted a low ridge with a natural stone overhang. Together, they guided the vehicle beneath it and secured their supplies. The heat arrived suddenly. The air shimmered and the ground radiated warmth. Even breathing felt heavy. Alara wiped sweat from her forehead and checked Kai. The baby was uncomfortable but safe. Riker activated cooling panels and shared water carefully. "This won't last long," he said, "but it's another reminder. This planet doesn't forgive mistakes." As they waited, Alara looked out at the shimmering land. She thought about everything she had been through. The storm, the rescue, the long journey. She realized something important. Humans were not strong because the universe was kind to them. They were strong because the universe was not kind and they kept going anyway. When the heat faded, they continued onward. By late afternoon, the stone towers began to thin out. The land opened into wide rolling hills, and in the distance, Alara saw something that made her stop. Buildings, small at first, then clearer, solar arrays, wind towers, fences. Is that, she began, Riker smiled. Yes, that's home. Emotion flooded Alara's chest. Relief, hope, and disbelief mixed together. She hugged Kai tightly, tears filling her eyes. But the journey was not finished yet. As they approached the hills, a warning signal blinked on Riker's wrist device. He frowned. What is it? Alara asked. Automated security drones, he said. Old system. Sometimes they don't recognize new people. Moments later, small hovering shapes rose from behind the hills. They moved silently, scanning the area. Alara's heart pounded. Are they dangerous? Only if we panic, Riker replied calmly. He stepped forward, hands visible, and activated a signal beacon. This is Riker, he said clearly. Returning home with civilians, stand down. The drones hovered, lights flickering as they processed the signal. One moved closer, scanning Alara and Kai. Alara stood still, reminding herself of everything she had learned. Stay calm. Think clearly, trust human judgment. After a long moment, the drones powered down and retreated. Riker smiled slightly. See, even machines learn to trust humans eventually. They continued toward the settlement. As they drew closer, people began to emerge, farmers, engineers, children. Faces turned toward the newcomers with curiosity. Alara felt nervous again, but this time it was different. This was not fear of danger. It was fear of the unknown future. The vehicle came to a stop near the main gate. Riker helped Alara down. A tall woman approached, her expression serious but kind. Riker, she said, you're late. Had a reason, he replied, gesturing toward Alara and Kai. They need a home. The woman looked at Alara, then at the baby. Her expression softened immediately. Anyone who survives the broken reach deserves a place here. Alara felt her knees weaken with relief. They were led inside the settlement. It was larger than Redstone Ridge, with strong walls, clean paths, and shared spaces filled with life. People worked together, laughed together, and looked out for one another. This was not just a settlement. This was a community. Alara was given a small but comfortable home. Fresh water, warm food, and clean clothes were provided without question. As night fell, Alara sat by a window, holding Kai and watching the lights of the settlement glow against the dark land. Riker stood nearby. You're safe now, he said. Alara looked at him. Because of you. He shook his head. Because of you too, you didn't give up, she smiled softly. I won't, not ever. Outside, the wind moved gently across the hills. The planet was still harsh. The dangers were still real, but humans were here. They built homes where none existed before. They protected the weak. They learned from the land instead of fighting it blindly. And as Alara watched Kai fall asleep in her arms, she knew one thing with certainty. No matter how wild the frontier, humanity would endure, because humans did not just survive storms. They became stronger because of them. The first rays of dawn stretched over the horizon, painting the settlement in soft golden light. Birds, or at least bird-like creatures adapted to Aurora 7, sang gently in the distance. The once harsh landscape now appeared inviting, filled with possibility. Alara held Kai close, the warmth of the morning sun touching their faces. She felt a calm she had not known in months. The journey had been long, terrifying, and exhausting. From the storm that had stranded them on the plains to the treacherous broken reach, every step had been a test of courage and patience. And yet here she was, alive, with her son safe, with humans who welcomed her into their community. Riker approached quietly, carrying a bundle of fresh water and food. He set it down beside her and smiled faintly. "Morning," he said. "You slept well." Alara smiled back, the baby stirring softly in her arms. "For the first time in weeks," she admitted. "It feels peaceful here," Riker nodded. "It should. You earned it, and Kai deserves it too." She looked down at her son. He blinked up at her, eyes wide and curious, as if sensing that the danger of the journey was finally over. A wave of relief and joy washed over Alara. She whispered softly, "We made it, little one, we're safe now." The settlement was waking up. People emerged from their homes, tending gardens, cleaning communal spaces, and preparing for the day's work. Children ran past, laughing, their energy filling the air with life. Alara marveled at how humans could create comfort and safety even on a wild, unforgiving planet. Survival, she realized, was not just about endurance. It was about building, protecting, and nurturing. Riker gestured for her to follow him. "Come on," he said. "There's someone you need to meet." Curious, Alara carried Kai and walked beside him. They reached a large, central building where other settlers had gathered. At the entrance stood a woman with sharp eyes and a welcoming smile. She held a small device in her hands, recording something, but paused to look at them. "This is Mara," Riker said. "She coordinates the settlement and ensures everyone has a place here." Mara stepped forward and knelt slightly to meet Alara's gaze. "Welcome," she said warmly. "We've been expecting you. You've been through a lot. Let's get you settled." Alara felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. She realized that humans were extraordinary not because of their strength or skill alone, but because they created communities that cared for each other. They thrived because they helped one another, building homes, families, and futures even in the most difficult circumstances. Mara led them to a small, cozy home prepared for them. The walls were simple but sturdy, the floor clean, and a warm bed awaited them. Alara set Kai down, letting him crawl slightly while she unpacked their few belongings. The home had water, food, and even a small cradle for the baby. For the first time, she could imagine a life without constant fear. Riker watched quietly, his eyes scanning the horizon. Even here, at the heart of human civilization on a distant planet, he remained vigilant. It was a reminder that survival required both courage and awareness. Alara approached him. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. He shrugged. "You survived. That's thanks enough. Humans survive because they refuse to give up, even when everything seems against them." "You showed that," she smiled faintly. "I learned a lot from you, about patience, observation, courage." Riker nodded. "Humans have always survived because of those qualities. Technology helps, but it's not what makes us strong. It's the will to endure, the ability to adapt, and the willingness to protect each other." Alara held Kai, thinking about the long journey they had endured. She realized that what Riker said was true. Humans had thrived not just because they were clever or strong, but because they cared for each other, trusted each other, and never gave up. Over the next few days, Alara began to settle into life in the settlement. She learned to tend to small gardens, repair simple tools, and cook with the ingredients provided. She interacted with other settlers, sharing stories, laughter, and even quiet moments of reflection. The community was a living example of human ingenuity and cooperation. Kai adapted quickly as well. He laughed with the children, explored safely under Alara's watchful eyes, and even seemed to sense that this place was home. Alara watched him, feeling a sense of pride and joy. She realized that humans did not just survive. They created environments where the next generation could thrive, even on a harsh, alien world. One evening, Riker invited Alara to walk with him along the ridge overlooking the settlement. The sky was painted with colors she had never seen before, deep purples, golds, and soft pinks blending as the sun set. The air smelled faintly of minerals and wild plants. "You're really settling in," Riker said, glancing at her. Alara smiled. "I am. And it's not just because this place is safe. It's because of the people and because of you." He shook his head. "It's not me. Humans do this naturally. We adapt, we protect, and we build communities. That's why we survive. You're living proof of that." Alara looked at the horizon. "It's strange," she said softly. "I thought survival meant fighting the world, but it's more than that. It's caring, learning, and growing together." Riker nodded. "Exactly. Humans endure storms because we must. But we thrive because we help each other. That's what makes us extraordinary. As night fell, the settlement glowed softly with lights powered by solar arrays and small wind turbines. Alara returned to her home, Kai sleeping in her arms. She placed him gently in the cradle and watched him breathe, thinking about everything they had been through. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to imagine the future, a life filled with hope, community, and safety. She knew the frontier would always be harsh, the storms unpredictable, and the dangers real. But she also knew that humans could endure anything together. In the following weeks, Alara became an integral part of the settlement. She helped care for children, shared knowledge with other settlers, and even assisted in repairing and maintaining equipment. Every task reminded her of the human qualities that had brought her this far: courage, intelligence, patience, and compassion. Riker continued to roam the nearby plains, keeping watch and ensuring the settlement remained safe. But he always returned in time to share meals, stories, and quiet moments with Alara and Kai. The bond between them grew strong, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences. One day, while watching the settlement from the ridge, Alara reflected on their journey. She thought of the storm that had left them stranded, the treacherous plains, and the dangers of the broken reach. Each obstacle had tested them, but every trial had revealed the strength of human spirit. She realized that humanity's greatest power was not technology, weapons, or speed. It was resilience, the ability to endure, adapt, and protect life, even when the odds were against them. It was the courage to face fear, the intelligence to learn from experience, and the compassion to care for others. Kai stirred in her arms and she looked down at him with a smile. "We're home now," she whispered, "safe, together, and we'll thrive." The settlement glimmered in the fading sunlight, alive with the hum of human activity. Children laughed, adults worked and shared, and Riker stood nearby, watching over them. The frontier was still wild, the planet still dangerous, but humans had made a home here. They had survived and they would continue to endure. Alara knew that life would never be easy. Challenges would come, storms would rage, and dangers would arise. But humans had a gift no storm could take: courage, hope, and the ability to persevere. And with that strength, she believed that anything was possible. As night settled over the hills, Alara held Kai close once more. She watched the stars above, bright and clear in the alien sky, and felt a sense of peace. Humanity had survived countless storms, both literal and metaphorical, and now on this distant planet they had built a life worth protecting. Alara smiled softly. "We made it," she whispered. "We really made it." Riker approached quietly, standing beside her as they looked out over the glowing settlement. "Yes," he said, "we did, and we'll keep going because humans endure, humans thrive, and humans never give up." For the first time, Alara felt completely at home. The journey had been long, dangerous, and exhausting, but it had proven something extraordinary. Humans were stronger, braver, and more remarkable than any storm could ever destroy. The frontier stretched before them, vast and full of possibility, but Alara no longer feared it. She embraced it, knowing that humans could survive, adapt, and flourish together. And in that truth, she found hope for the future, courage for the challenges ahead, and the knowledge that her son, Kai, would grow up in a world where humans could endure anything. Because humans were extraordinary, and this was only the beginning.